Since William the Conqueror disembarked at Hastings and became King of England in 1066, the French and English dynasties have had a complicated relationship. Although a king himself, the ruler of England was technically a French vassal. Thus, claims from both parties over lands and the right to rule them brought about many bloody conflicts and societal unrest. However, the French systematically stripped away continental lands from the English whenever opportunity arose, especially during Scottish-English conflicts. By 1337, only the province of Gascony remained English. Tensions started with the death of Charles IV of France, who had no male heir. The next in line for the French crown was King Edward III of England, whose mother was Charles's sister. The French nobility naturally desired a Frenchman on the throne, so the crown was eventually passed to Charles's patrilineal cousin, Philip, Count of Valois. This represented the end of the direct male line of the Capetian dynasty. Its men had been on the French throne for over 300 years, since 987. The lengthy conflict began in May 1337. Its first phase out of three is referred to as the Edwardian War, because of the participation of King Edward III and his son, Edward the Black Prince. It represented major wins for the English, most notably the battles of Crécy in 1346 and Poitiers in 1356. 4 years later, the Treaty of Bretigny marked the end of this phase, as well as the climax of English power in France. This period also encompassed the emergence of the Black Death, from 1346 to 1353, a pandemic that killed between 30 and 60% of the European population. The second phase, the Caroline War, after Charles V of France, started 9 years later, in 1369. In the meantime, Western Europe experienced the First Castilian Civil War and the War of the Breton Succession, in which the English and French also took sides. During this phase, the French managed to recover almost all of their lands. Adopting an attritional strategy, they avoided open battles and focused on incrementally wearing down the invading force. One important event was the Battle of Pontfaucon in 1370, where the French managed to wipe out a divided English army, ending their reputation for invincibility in open battle. By 1374, England had lost all its gains since before the Battle of Crécy, except Calais. The 1375 Treaty of Bruges agreed to a year-long truce, that eventually doubled. The fight for the French throne resumed in 1377. Due to both parties' internal political and economic problems, the second phase ended in 1389, with the Truce of Lullingham, inaugurating 13 years of sustained peace. The third and final phase of the conflict, the Lancastrian War, started with the invasion of Normandy by King Henry V of House Lancaster in 1415, motivated by France's internal divisions. With the famous victory at the Battle of Agincourt in 1415, coupled with turmoil among the French nobility, the scales seemed to tip in favor of the invader. The turning point of the war, at a time when English victory seemed imminent, was marked by the Siege of Orléans in 1428, that lasted over 6 months. There, a 17-year-old girl by the name of Joan of Arc, who formally requested to be taken to the soon-to-be King Charles, claiming she was guided by divine visions, arrived with a relief army granted by him. 9 days later, after intense combat, the siege was lifted. The next month, at Joan's instances, Charles and the French army marched north towards Reims, the traditional French coronation spot. There, Charles was finally consecrated as King Charles VII of France, in mid-July 1429. The following year saw a slow and steady French reconquest, up until the Battle of Castellon in 1453. The conflict formally ended with the Treaty of Picquigny in 1475. The only continental land still in English hands remained the Pale of Calais. By the war's end, military practices had completely changed, professional troops had taken the place of feudal levies and artillery became a much more important part of warfare. Suffering immense financial losses, England was left insolvent and on the path to a series of civil wars known as the Wars of the Roses, commencing in 1455. Thanks for watching Fast History.